Meet Haruka Yamagishi. He's your average, middle-aged salaryman who's trying to get through the day. Between a lack of respect at work and a constant talk about his lack of drive, he's basically a tired nerd in a suit. He hits the hay in his cramped apartment, fully expecting the same boring routine tomorrow. But instead of a dusty ceiling, he wakes up to clear blue skies and the sound of rustling leaves. His eyes snap open, but they aren't the tired ones he's used to seeing in the mirror. Haruka sits up, completely lost in the middle of a lush forest. He was just in his room, so his heart starts racing as he tries to make sense of the situation. A quick look down confirms it. His middle-aged body is gone, replaced by something much more feminine. He's no longer a weary man. He's become the most beautiful woman he's ever seen. Wait, look at those ears, they're long and pointed, and his skin is way more tan than before. The realization hits him like a truck. He's turned into a dark elf. It's every fantasy nerd's dream, but Haruka is still very much an old man on the inside. The fantasy vibe gets real when a massive roar echoes through the woods, making him jump. He starts wondering if this is a prank or if he was actually summoned by someone. There's no god here to explain things, and certainly no hero-worshipping summoners in sight. It's just him, alone in a world he knows absolutely nothing about. The silence of the forest is starting to feel a little too heavy. Anxiety kicks in full force as he realizes how vulnerable he really is. What if he runs into something dangerous? He doesn't even know if he can speak the language here. To stop the doom scrolling in his head, he decides to distract himself with something fun. He finds a decent-looking branch. He poses with it like a wizard's staff, feeling a bit silly but desperate for a win. Ever since he was a kid, he's wanted to be a hero or a powerful wizard. Now, it might be his chance. If elves exist here, magic probably does too. He decides to try a simple fire spell for survival. He pictures a classic bonfire, something he saw once on a nature show. He focuses all his energy on that image, imagining massive flames leaping high. With a steady breath, he gives the command, "Burn." A massive pillar of fire erupts, way bigger than any bonfire. It even grills a few passing birds in an instant. He stands there in shock, staring at the absolute destruction he just caused with his stick. The forest is sizzling, and Haruka realizes he might have overdone it. It worked. He actually used magic. But excessive is putting it lightly. That was more like a tactical nuke than a campfire. Suddenly, a man in armor appears, sword drawn and looking ready for a fight. Haruka freezes. This is exactly the kind of threatening encounter he was worried about. He drops his staff immediately, trying to show he's not a threat. Seeing a real sword pointed at him is terrifying. This is way outside his salaryman comfort zone. The guy is breathing hard and shaking. Haruka is panicking, wondering if he can even talk his way out of this. He raises his hands, hoping this guy gets the "I come in peace" vibe. If not, he's ready to use another spell as a distraction. But then he notices something. Something is dripping from the man's boots. The armor guy just slumps over, the sword clattering to the ground. He's totally out of it. Haruka is baffled. The threat just folded faster than a cheap suit. He points out the obvious problem. The guy might want to go change his pants. The adventurer, Ralph, bows deeply and apologizes for his behavior, calling her a beautiful magician. Haruka has a feeling things are about to get weird. Look at this guy. He's acting so casual, like he didn't just almost lose his cool a minute ago. He introduces himself as Ralph Vogan, a rank 2 adventurer based out of a city called Orens. The protagonist realizes she probably needs to give him a name, too. But who exactly is she now? On the inside, she's still Haruka Yamagishi, a 43-year-old man. Ralph is pretty understanding, though. He says if there's a reason she can't share her name, he won't push. She tells him to just call her Yamagishi. Ralph looks a bit surprised by the choice. To keep things simple, she goes with a classic amnesia excuse. Ralph is totally shocked. She follows up by asking if he can guide her to the nearest town. It's only a partial lie. She really doesn't know whose body she's in or how things work here. Ralph seems to buy it, figuring that weird stuff like this just happens to people sometimes. He's more than happy to help her out. He says they can reach Orens by dusk and checks if she's up for the long walk. She's already feeling incredibly grateful. This guy's a real gentleman. On the way, Ralph starts teaching her everything she needs to know about this new world. They finally reach the city, and the sight of it is absolutely breathtaking. This is Orens, located in the independent commercial city-state of Plain, where ability is valued above all else. Ralph's first priority is getting her some proper shoes. He really is going above and beyond. He explains the ranking system, where top-tier adventurers are basically legendary monsters themselves. He notices she's already hard at work, taking notes in the book he just bought her. Then he suggests that she should think about becoming an adventurer, too. He points out that magic is a great skill for survival and that she'll never go hungry. Ralph is almost too kind, and Haruka starts to feel a bit worried about how much she owes him. Later that night, she dives into studying. Magic is all about manipulating a substance called mana. Her notes are already crammed. Every spell needs a specific name and incantation to work. She's locked in, focusing harder than she has in years. She can't even remember the last time she was so desperate to learn something. In her old life, things were pretty stagnant, just a face in the office crowd. Her old boss was always breathing down her neck about her lack of energy. He complained that she didn't have any ambition or pizzazz in her work. He talked about how much faster the younger employees were getting things done. All she could do was bow and apologize, promising to try harder next time. It was back to clicking away at her desk until the day was finally over. The train ride home was always the same tired, empty routine. She'd spend her nights surrounded by trash and games, wasting time on whatever pleasure she could find. She didn't want anything. She didn't seek anything out. She had just given up on everything. But now, lying in this bed as a dark elf, she realizes she doesn't really miss that world at all. She wonders what the point of her old life even was, but decides there's no sense dwelling on it now. There's a whole new world out there with so much left for her to learn and do. She's starting over, and this time, things feel a lot different. She settles in for a good night's sleep, knowing tomorrow is going to be a big day. Her eyes snap open the second the sun comes up. She's ready to go. Even though she's an old man on the inside, her current self is anything but. Waking up in this young, light body feels like a dream. It's hard to believe this is her new reality. Ralph is supposed to take her to the Adventurers Guild today, so she decides to grab some breakfast before they head out. The moment she steps into the dining area, the entire room goes dead silent. Everyone is staring. She starts to wonder if dark elves really are that rare around here. The attention is making her super uncomfortable. One girl in particular is just straight up burning a hole through her with her eyes. Haruka feels like a specimen in a zoo. She quickly decides to take her food to go. She figures eating in her room is the best way to avoid ruining everyone else's morning with her presence. She settles in for a quiet meal of soup and bread. It's simple, but it's exactly what she needs. A sudden knock at the door breaks her focus. She calls out that she's on her way. It's Ralph, coming to check on her. He looks ready to start the day. She tells him she just needs to return her tray, but then she catches the look on his face. He's blushing and looking away. He awkwardly asks if she has a jacket or something to cover herself with. She realizes the stares from earlier weren't because she was an elf, but because of what she was, or rather, wasn't, wearing. She's so used to being an old man that she didn't even think twice about her appearance. She definitely needs to be more careful. The building for the guild is huge. It really drives home the fact that she's in a completely different world. Walking through the streets, she feels a heavy sense of worry. Can she really build a life here? Suddenly, a couple of kids come sprinting past them, nearly knocking her over. One of them actually collides with her. Ralph is quick to react, checking to see if she's okay. She just smiles, thinking it's a sweet sight to see kids playing so energetically. But Ralph isn't smiling. He grabs one of the boys by the collar as they try to run off. He sternly tells the kid to give back whatever he just took from her. The boy grumbles and throws the item onto the ground, shouting that he didn't want it anyway. It's her notebook. Haruka is stunned that she was just pickpocketed in broad daylight. Ralph warns her that pockets are easy targets and she needs to be more careful. He explains that many kids in the slums resort to theft just to survive. It's a harsh reality. Ralph's words are cold. He says that with that kid's lack of skill, he'll likely end up dead soon. It hits her then. This isn't some game she's watching through a screen. This world is savage and real. They arrive at the guild, and a receptionist greets them with a professional smile. She asks Haruka to fill out a registration form. Haruka is relieved that she can at least read and write here. When they get to the age section, Ralph has to explain that she's lost her memories. The receptionist notes that dark elves usually start wearing cuffs at age 18. Since she has none, they decide to list her age as 17. Haruka pays the registration fee, and the receptionist tells her to attend a seminar for new adventurers later. As they walk away, Haruka can't help but ask Ralph a question that's been bothering her. She wants to know why he's being so incredibly kind to her, a complete stranger. She promises to repay every cent he spent on her, but he just tells her there's no need to go that far. He says his intuition is telling him to nurture his connection with her. Then he starts getting all flustered, thinking back to their very first meeting in the woods. Haruka wonders if he's still embarrassed about the whole bathroom situation from yesterday. But it seems there's more to it than just that. He tells her that the way she looked while using magic was so beautiful that he couldn't take his eyes off her. Then he drops the bomb. He says he thinks it might have been love at first sight. Haruka is completely floored. Ralph is being brutally honest now, admitting he's just trying to win her over and prove he's a guy worth her time. Haruka can only stare at him in total shock. Please, just don't get your hopes up, she stammers out, completely gobsmacked by his sudden confession. This was not how she expected her morning to go. Deep down, Haruka Yamagishi is still a tired, 43-year-old salaryman. He knows he can't let this young man waste his feelings on someone who is, mentally, an old guy. Ralph looks a little hurt, but he takes the rejection like a champ. He tells her it's okay and says he'll be busy at the guild if she needs anything later. As he walks away, he mentions he's already paid for a full week at the inn for her. Haruka is stunned by his kindness and a little panicked about how much a week's stay actually costs in this world. She realizes her beautiful new appearance might actually be a bit of a problem. If she's going to survive on her own, she needs to start earning money as soon as possible. Step 1 is hitting the books. She heads to the library, determined to learn everything she can about this world and how to make it on her own. Haruka spends her morning tucked away in a corner of the guild library, diligently taking notes. She lets out a heavy sigh, already feeling the mental weight of her new life as a dark elf. Her hand rests on a beginner's magic guide, a book meant for those just starting their journey. Eventually, she makes her way to the seminar room, realizing she's the only one there so far. The silence is broken when Montana walks in, his fluffy ears twitching as he enters. Haruka can't help but stare, finding the sight of his tail and ears surprisingly lush. Without a word, the boy sits down and immediately starts hammering away at a chunk of rock. Haruka watches in confusion, wondering if this is actually the classroom she's supposed to be in. 2 more trainees arrive, Albert and Corinne, who are already bickering with each other. Watching them, Haruka figures they're a pretty lively duo. Surrounded by teenagers, she starts feeling the massive age gap between her old self and these kids. The door clicks open again as a woman in a large witch hat strides into the room. Haruka recognizes her instantly. It's the instructor from this morning. She tries to keep a low profile, hoping things don't get too awkward. The instructor, Ellie Hitstan, introduces herself as a rank 3 adventurer and kicks off the lesson. She starts with the basics, the mindset of an adventurer and the different jobs they handle. Haruka stays focused, jotting down everything she hears about the people of this world. Ellie explains the divide between the races of mankind and the destructive monsters known as ruins. The reality of the job sinks in. Adventurers are essentially the front line against these creatures. Haruka's heart sinks as she stares at the drawings of the monsters they're expected to fight. The salaryman inside her is already screaming that she's not built for this kind of excitement. Finally, Ellie snaps her book shut and dismisses the class. Haruka stays seated for a moment, convinced that a life of violence just isn't for her. She's always been timid, and the thought of getting into real fights is genuinely terrifying. It's settled. She'll stick to the safe path, just like she did back in her old world. But as she turns to leave, the 3 teens from earlier suddenly call out to her. Albert leans over his desk, eyes sparkling as he suggests the 4 of them form a party. Haruka freezes, completely caught off guard by the offer. Before she can say no, Albert decides they should all start with introductions. He proudly announces he's 14 and was trained by his adventurer father. Montana pipes up next, mentioning he's the son of a dwarven blacksmith. He explains he was adopted by dwarves after a giant bird snatched him away as a child. Now all 3 of them are staring at her, waiting for her to speak. Haruka breaks out in a cold sweat, feeling the pressure of their expectations. Internal monologue, considering she just realized adventuring is impossible for her. This is a pickle. She manages to give them her name, and Albert and Corinne are thrilled to have her. Their youthful energy is almost blinding, making her feel even more like an out-of-place old man. Albert and Montana show off their weapons, a hammer and a dagger, looking ready for action. The trio is already giddy about their perfect party composition. Panicked, Haruka raises her hands and asks for a night to think it over. She doesn't wait for an answer, turning on her heel and sprinting out of the room. The trio is left in the dust, stunned by just how fast their potential new teammate can run. Haruka keeps walking, the sound of her own footsteps echoing in the quiet hallway. She imagines herself adventuring with those kids, worried she'll just end up being a burden to them. She breaks into a trot, mentally yelling at herself to calm down and remember she's a 43-year-old man. Suddenly, a wooden sword flies past her and slams into a nearby wall with a loud crack. A young trainee dashes over, frantically apologizing for the near miss as Haruka stares at the broken weapon. Haruka asks if he's all right, relieved when the boy tells her it just slipped out of his hand. She watches him head back to his practice, still a bit shaken by the sudden noise. Around her, The training ground is filled with a rhythmic thwack of wooden swords clashing together. She looks around, realizing she's stumbled right into the heart of the guild's combat practice area. Nearby, a young mage calls out the name of a spell, focusing their energy for a shot. A fire arrow streaks across the yard and hits the target, but the caster immediately clutches their head in pain. Haruka steps closer, concerned, and asks if the girl is doing okay. The girl just sighs and rubs her temples, explaining that it's just a common case of mana sickness. Haruka recalls her reading, remembering that the strain of mana passing through the brain can cause these intense headaches. The trainee decides to take a breather and tells Haruka the training spot is all hers. Haruka takes the chance, figured it's a good opportunity to actually see what her limits are. She observes the other mages only managing a few spells before they're forced to take a break. Taking a deep breath, she begins the incantation for a basic fire arrow, just like in the textbooks. She focuses on the image of sharpened bolt, her heart racing as she prepares to release the mana. With a sharp movement, she directs the energy exactly where she wants it to go. She releases the spell, sending a bright streak of flame flying forward. The arrow slams into the target with a satisfying thud, sending a burst of sparks into the air. Haruka stares at the target, surprised by how natural and effortless the entire process felt. She doesn't stop there, firing arrow after arrow in a rapid-fire sequence that blurs the air around her. The other trainees stop what they're doing, whispering in shock at the Dark Elf's incredible pace. A genuine smile spreads across Haruka's face as the thrill of the magic completely takes over. She reflects that in all her 40 years of life, she's never felt a rush quite like this before. The crowd can only watch in silence, wondering just how many times she can fire without tiring. Haruka suddenly snaps out of it, realizing that all eyes in the yard are fixed directly on her. She quickly bows and apologizes for monopolizing the target before making a hasty exit. She calculates that she's already fired over 50 spells and still feels completely fine. Seeing Albert and the others watching from the sidelines, she starts to think that maybe she won't be such a burden after all. As she tries to sneak away, a familiar voice calls out a greeting from behind her. It's Ellie Hitstan, and she looks like she's ready to have a serious talk. Without waiting for a response, Ellie turns and tells Haruka to follow her. Haruka follows her into the guild canteen, her nerves starting to flare up once again. They sit down, and a hearty meal is promptly slammed onto the table with a heavy thud. Ellie doesn't say a word at first, simply tearing into a fresh loaf of bread with practiced ease. She starts assembling a massive sausage sandwich, squeezing on a generous amount of dark sauce. With a look of pure focus, the seasoned adventurer takes a huge chomp out of the sandwich. Her eyes narrow slightly as she chews, maintaining an intense silence that makes Haruka nervous. Finally, she tells Haruka that she's treating her today, so she should stop being shy and eat up. Haruka sits across from Ellie, looking incredibly gloomy as if she's carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. Ellie leans back, assuring Haruka that she simply wanted to ask a question and isn't there to torment her. Leaning forward with a serious expression, Ellie asks Haruka what kind of relationship she has with Ralph. Haruka explains that Ralph helped her when she was lost in the woods, though Ellie seems more interested in her food than the story. Ellie suggests that Haruka should avoid getting involved with him, calling Ralph a womanizer who chases anything in a skirt. She mentions that he even made one of her friends cry, leading Haruka to reconsider her high opinion of the man. Haruka mentions that Ralph has been nothing but kind to her, but Ellie abruptly interrupts to ask if she's wealthy. Ellie explains that the inn Haruka is staying at is extremely expensive, usually reserved only for rank 3 adventurers and above. Haruka realizes Ralph has been paying for everything, and Ellie warns her that he's likely looking for something in return. Ellie offers a solution, cancel the room, move into the guild dorm, and even offers to lend Haruka some money. Haruka is taken aback by the sudden offer of generosity from the senior adventurer. Looking fierce, Ellie stabs a sausage and declares her goal is to make Ralph miserable for hurting her friend. Feeling relieved that her debt won't grow any further, Haruka listens as Ellie offers to help her vacate the inn. Haruka takes a sip of her drink, only for the bitter, unfamiliar taste to catch her completely off guard. She lets out a sharp cough as the harsh flavor hits her throat, prompting a hearty laugh from Ellie. Haruka realizes that despite her mature seminar persona, Ellie is just a normal young woman who wants to be friendly. When Ellie asks to know more about her, Haruka admits that she has amnesia and can't remember anything before the forest. Their conversation is interrupted by a loud, echoing growl from Haruka's empty stomach. A freshly cooked dish, hot and flaky, is placed before them on the wooden table with a flourish. Forgetting her worries for a moment, Haruka digs in and finds the simple guild food surprisingly delicious. The two women walk together through the streets, the mood much lighter than when they first sat down. Haruka bows deeply to a guild official, requesting a room in the dorm as Ellie watches with a satisfied smile. Ellie apologizes for dragging her around all day, but Haruka insists that she actually had a great time. Catching Haruka off guard, Ellie looks her in the eye and asks her to join her adventuring party. Haruka mentions that the trainees from earlier already invited her, leaving her feeling torn between the two offers. She hesitates, unsure if she belongs in their circle, her internal middle-aged man feeling out of place. She looks at the enthusiastic young trainees, feeling like an old man who doesn't have any grand dreams or goals left. Haruka's conflict grows as she wonders if she can truly befriend people who are so much younger and more driven. Ellie notices her worrying and suggests that she should at least try a trial run with the trainees first. She tells Haruka that she's earnest and thoughtful, qualities that are just as important as being able to use magic. Leaning in close, Ellie points out that the fact Haruka is brooding so much proves her heart has already made a choice. Haruka looks down, admitting that she was just waiting for someone to give her the final push she needed. Ellie reinforces her sincerity, telling Haruka that her invitation to the party wasn't just a joke or a whim. When Haruka thanks her formally, Ellie tells her to drop the miss and just call her Ellie from now on. Standing tall, Ellie firmly declares that they are friends now, a statement that leaves Haruka speechless. Haruka watches her, repeating the word friends to herself as they finish up the paperwork at the counter. Feeling a new sense of purpose, Haruka decides to take a quick look at the job board to see what kind of work is available. Ellie offers to accompany her, but Haruka insists that she's not a child and can look at a board by herself. After a brief exchange, they part ways with a promise to meet again soon, both feeling much closer than before. Haruka walks toward the large wooden job board, her mind filled with thoughts of her new path as an adventurer. Suddenly, a large man with a deep X-shaped scar on his face blocks her path and asks if she's Ralph's woman. The scarred adventurer makes a crude comment about the dark elf's appearance, causing Haruka to freeze in shock. Haruka tries to clarify that she and Ralph don't have that kind of relationship, but the scarred adventurer and his companions just burst into mocking laughter. Haruka looks away, feeling a wave of discomfort and wondering how she should handle the situation without causing a scene. She recalls Ellie's warning about Ralph's womanizing causing trouble and starts to realize that she's become a target solely because of him. The scarred man leans back with a group of other adventurers, crudely suggesting that Haruka should give up adventuring and just sell her looks on a street corner. Despite the insults, Haruka remains polite and asks him to stop being cruel, which only seems to make a vein in his forehead throb with anger. He leans in close, his expression twisting with malice as he asks if she thinks she's better than him, before suddenly grabbing her arm. Looming over the smaller elf, the scarred adventurer sneers and promises to teach her a lesson that she'll never forget. Tot and his gang corner Haruka in a dark alley. She tries to stay polite, asking them to just let her go. But things are already getting physical. Tot's losing his patience and starts grabbing her. He's offended now. He thinks the dark elf is looking down on him. Haruka tries to de-escalate, telling them she just doesn't like fighting. His buddies just smirk in the background. She bows and apologizes, hoping they'll back off since she doesn't have any money anyway. Tot just looms over her. He says if she can't pay with cash, she can pay with her body. He reaches out to grab her again. Haruka stays silent, her expression hardening. She gives them one last warning to stop, or she'll be forced to resist. The gang just laughs, daring her to show them what a newbie like her can actually do. Haruka's internally debating how to end this without actually hurting them. She decides on water magic since fire would be overkill. She starts conjuring an orb in her hand. She doesn't just make one. She commands the mana to gather and multiply until 4 orbs are floating. The guys are practically rolling. They think she's just trying to give them a cold. Todd isn't laughing as hard. He started to realize something is very wrong. His buddies ask if he's actually scared of a little splash. Haruka just stands there with 4 spheres hovering around her like it's the easiest thing in the world. Most adventurers can only handle 1 spell at a time. Managing 4 is a level of skill that's basically unheard of. Todd's losing it, demanding to know how she's pulling this off so casually. Haruka doesn't bother answering. She just gives the command to strike. A ball of water hits Tot right in the face. It doesn't just splash, it wraps around his head like a solid bubble, and he goes down hard. One of the lackeys panics as he realizes the water isn't going away. Tot's legitimately drowning on dry land. He's struggling to breathe as the reality of the situation sinks in. The rest of the gang is laid out on the pavement. Haruka stands alone in the middle of the alley. She's just staring at her hands, her heart pounding as the adrenaline starts to fade. She hears her name. It's Ellie, looking for her. Ellie rushes in, terrified that something happened to her friend. She sees the guys on the ground and realizes she didn't need to worry about a rescue. Haruka doesn't say a word, still looking a bit shell-shocked. Ellie grabs her, checking to see if they laid a hand on her. Haruka finally speaks, but she's only worried about whether she accidentally killed them. Ellie checks their pulses. They're fine, just unconscious. She tells Haruka they should get out of here and talk about it later. Haruka stops. She knows it was self-defense, but the guilt is hitting her anyway. She's never hurt someone on purpose before, and the thought of what could have happened makes her sick. Haruka suddenly grabs Ellie's hand, stopping her from leaving. She insists they can't just leave them like this, or they might actually die from the water in their lungs. She goes back to the thugs and starts hauling them up, trying to help. She starts thumping Todd on the back to get the water out. Todd starts hacking and coughing up the water. Ellie just watches, probably wondering why she's being so nice to people who try to mug her. Haruka keeps lightly slapping his face until he finally starts to wake up. Haruka panics for a second, worried she might have hit him a little too hard. Todd's just slumped over, drooling on himself. He finally blinks and comes to. Haruka is just glad he's actually awake. She immediately apologizes for going overboard. She genuinely wants to know how she can make things right, but is absolutely terrified. To him, her calm face looks like she's ready for round 2. He hits the deck, bowing as hard as he can. He begs her to forgive him, admitting he was the one who screwed up. Ellie thinks they've spent enough time in this alley. She tells Haruka the gentlemen seem fine and it's time to go. Todd stops them, shouting that he wants to buy them a meal as an apology. Ellie's all for it. She tells Haruka that if the guy wants to apologize, they should let him. They end up at a tavern with a spread that's way bigger than Haruka expected. Ellie is in heaven, stuffing her face with the free food. Haruka thinks she's a lot sneakier than she looks. Todd keeps calling her boss lady between apologies. Haruka's internal salaryman is cringing at the nickname. As they eat, Todd starts venting about his life. He says there's this one girl he knows. Turns out, he's been in love with his childhood friend forever, but she only has eyes for Ralph. He's bitter because she started wearing makeup just for Ralph. He insists he's way stronger than that dipshit. The tavern girl shuts him down immediately. She tells him to talk big once he actually manages to outrank Ralph. She calls him scum for taking his frustrations out on a total stranger, but is completely crushed. Ellie doesn't care about the drama. She just tells Haruka to keep eating until his wallet is empty. Haruka realizes she's somehow accidentally acquired a gang of underlings. It's a total circus, but she doesn't have the heart to fire them. A bell rings out across the city the next morning. Haruka is still getting used to the fantasy world's version of an alarm clock. She sits up, still feeling a bit out of place in this new life. She has a big day ahead meeting the rookies, but first, she notes she really needs to buy some proper undergarments for support. Suddenly, there's a knock at the door. A girl in an incredibly fancy dress is standing there with a bright smile. She introduces herself as Vish Valeri, the master of a top-tier clan called Golden Wings. Haruka realizes she's talking to a rank 1 adventurer. Vish is impressed that she's already done her homework. In this world, rank 1s are the only ones allowed to form massive clans. Haruka is instantly on edge, wondering if she's in trouble. Vish laughs it off, saying she just wanted to drop by with a gift. The gift turns out to be exactly what Haruka was just thinking about: expensive undergarments. Vish gets a little too close, admitting she was worried about the sizing, but thinks they'll fit perfectly. She spins around and leaves, wishing Haruka a lovely day with a dramatic flair. Haruka is left standing there, completely shooketh. She's decided this woman is terrifying. She leaves the weird gift on her bed and heads out, trying to focus on meeting Albert and the others. Over at the guild, the atmosphere is heavy. Ralph and Ellie are staring each other down like they're about to duel. Ralph is being his usual pushy self, telling Ellie to back off and leave Haruka alone. Haruka walks right into the middle of the argument. She just wants everyone to stop fighting. She surprises Ralph by bowing and apologizing for the misunderstanding they had back at the inn. She says her behavior was appalling for an adult. Ralph is stunned by the sudden humility. Suddenly, Tot and his gang burst in, yelling at Ralph's group for making their boss lady bow to them. They think Ralph is trying to move it on her. Ralph is just annoyed that he's being called scum by a bunch of thugs. Ellie sighs, saying they're all the same. One's a womanizer, and the others are just violent idiots. Everyone starts shouting at once. Haruka is standing there, completely overwhelmed by the chaos. Across town, Corinne is banging on a door, yelling at Albert to wake up before they miss breakfast. Montana, the Beast Girl, joins her, and they finally get Albert moving. They're all excited to go meet Haruka for their first real mission. The guild is a cacophony of voices today. Albert, Corinne, and Montana walk in, immediately noticing that the place is buzzing even more than usual. They overhear other adventurers talking about some kind of scuffle breaking out. Corinne spots a familiar head of white hair and realizes it's Haruka. Haruka, Corinne calls out. The dark elf turns around, looking like she's just been thrown a lifeline in the middle of a storm. She greets them with a relieved smile, but quickly asks if they mind waiting just a little longer. She's still in the middle of her situation. Haruka dashes back into the fray to handle things. The rookies watch her go, wondering if they should feel bad for her being at the center of all this. They ask a nearby veteran what's going on. He chuckles, telling them it looks like a classic fight over a beautiful woman, with Ralph leading the charge. Albert looks a bit discouraged, asking if a newbie like him is just bad luck compared to a veteran. The guy at the bar says the choice is usually pretty obvious. Albert starts to get up, thinking he should intervene, but Corinne pulls him back. Montana whispers that they should stay out of it. It's Haruka's choice to make. Back at the center of the noise, Todd is losing his mind because Ralph had the nerve to use Haruka's first name. Ralph just smirks, saying he's a much better choice than some creep lurking around her. Ellie leans in, telling Haruka she needs to be honest and just pick one so they can end the drama. Haruka is sweating bullets, feeling like she isn't good at dealing with either of these types. She peeks over at the rookies sitting at the table. She hates that she's causing a scene and making her new friends wait. Steeling herself, she looks at the two bickering men and asks if they'll come over with her. Both of them look surprised but comply. She walks right up to the rookies' table, with Ralph and Tot trailing behind her like confused puppies. With a firm voice, she makes her announcement. She's going to form a party with these 3 children. She looks the veterans in the eye, explaining that she has absolutely no intention of accepting any other invites right now. She softens her tone, adding that she'd still love to remain friends with everyone, but she makes one thing very clear: no more fighting. The rookies are absolutely thrilled. Corinne practically tackles her with a hug, while Albert and Montana look like they've just won the lottery. Ralph takes the rejection like a gentleman, wishing the young uns luck. Haruka is just relieved she didn't scare them off with all the trouble she's been causing. As the crowd starts to disperse, Ralph lingers for a moment and calls out her name again. Haruka takes the chance to apologize properly for her earlier, unrefined behavior. Ralph laughs it off, admitting he wasn't exactly a paragon of maturity himself. She explains that she was mostly panicking because she's completely broke and didn't want to end up owing him even more than she already does. Ralph gives her a warm, genuine smile. He tells her that if she's ever in real trouble, he wants her to rely on him first. He waves goodbye and heads off. Ellie follows behind, muttering about what a pretentious prick he is, much to Haruka's amusement. Tot catches her attention next. He and his gang are standing there, looking a little awkward, but holding a large package. They explain it's a gift, some new clothes since they heard she didn't have anything else to wear. Haruka is touched, thanking them and promising to pay them back. As the group watches her from the guild entrance, Haruka reflects on how much her life has changed in just a few short days. With the veterans gone, the rookies are eager to get going. Corinne is bouncing with excitement, ready to make their party official. Haruka shakes Albert's hand, a small, genuine smile on her face. She's truly happy to be working with them. Deep in the grass of the nearby woods, a small rabbit is peacefully nibbling on some plants until a massive shadow looms over it. A giant foot stomps down with a thud, sending the terrified rabbit dashing away into the trees. Something big is prowling the area. Back in town, Haruka is already putting her dark elf strength to good use. A local worker calls out to her, asking for a hand with some supplies. He's stunned when she easily lifts a massive stack of bales with a single hand. Haruka just shrugs, telling him it's no sweat. An older man watches with a grin, thankful he hired her. He's been struggling with his back, and Haruka is happy to take over the heavy lifting. 3 months have passed since Haruka registered as an adventurer. She still thinks of herself as an old man, but this new body definitely makes the manual labor a lot easier. She even uses her salaryman skills to help the locals with their accounting. Apparently, being good at math is a rare talent in this world. Between the labor and the desk work, Haruka finally managed to pay off her initial debt. She's even started making quite a few friends around town. The townspeople are constantly amazed by her. Seeing a slim dark elf carry a massive boulder with a smile isn't exactly a common sight. Albert watches her from a distance, looking pretty frustrated. He's stuck doing delivery work while the extraordinary elf gets all the praise. Corinne catches him sulking and calls him out immediately. She knows exactly why he's so jealous of Haruka's sudden popularity. Albert tries to play it cool, but Corinne isn't buying it. She tells him his face is like an open book after all the years they've spent together. She explains that Haruka is just smarter and uses magic to strengthen her body. Albert hates to admit it, but he knows she's right. Suddenly, a cart nearby hits a bump and sends a crate of wine bottles flying straight toward Corinne. Albert screams out a warning, but it's too late. The bottles slam into the ground and shatter everywhere. For a second, everything goes silent as the liquid splatters across the alley. Haruka steps in front of Corinne just in time, but now her face is covered in a deep red liquid. Corinne looks up, absolutely terrified. The girls start panicking, thinking Haruka is mortally wounded. A crowd starts to gather as they wail about her bleeding out. Haruka takes a quick sniff of the blood and realizes it's just cheap red wine. She wipes it away, trying to calm everyone down. She flexes a bit to prove she's fine. Corinne is convinced that Haruka's strengthening magic is so powerful it literally made her invincible. Haruka plays it off with a smile, but internally, her heart is beating like a drum. She can't believe she was reckless enough to jump in like that. Later that day, Albert is back to his delivery route, looking more miserable than ever. He's hauling a massive sack while the local kids tease him. Haruka brings some tea over to where the trio is resting. Albert is face down on the table, completely drained of spirit. He groans about how this isn't the adventure he imagined. He wants to be out fighting monsters, not doing chores and being babysat. He throws a bit of a tantrum, demanding a real quest. Corinne just sighs, telling him his childish attitude is exactly why he's still a low rank. The girls reveal they've actually ranked up recently. Corinne is now rank 7, and Eva Montana is rank 6, leaving Albert at the bottom. Then Haruka drops the real bombshell. She calmly mentions that she just reached rank 5. The kids are floored. They can't believe she's already surpassed them all just by doing odd jobs and manual labor. Haruka looks at Albert and asks if he really wants to go on an adventure. He nods tentatively, still processing the shock. She explains that with a rank 5 party leader, they can actually accept higher level commissions. They could even take on a rank 7 hunt. Albert's eyes light up. He immediately slams his hands on the table and shouts that he wants to go right now. Haruka has to tell him to hold his horses. The girls just watch him dash off to the guild. They agree that he really has zero concept of the word calm. Montana gets up to follow him, already thinking about the equipment she'll need. She's surprisingly excited for a real fight. Even Haruka and Corinne can't hide their smiles. Seeing how happy the kids are makes the prospect of a dangerous hunt feel a lot more like a field trip. They head to the guild's job board to pick their target. There are plenty of options, but they need something suitable for their first real party quest. Albert triumphantly holds up a request. They're going to the Sunset Forest to hunt down some hornboars. That night, Haruka finds she can't sleep. The nerves of her first real combat mission are keeping her wide awake. She decides to get up and review her research one last time. She wants to be as prepared as possible so she doesn't let the kids down. The notes describe the hornboar as a distorted beast that evolved by absorbing mana. It's a dangerous subspecies with a single, razor-sharp horn. While they're dangerous, boars are also a vital resource. Their meat, hide, and tusks can all be sold for a high price at the guild. Haruka figures the hunt is also a way for the guild to keep the monster population in check. It's essentially a community service with a paycheck. The book warns not to go too deep into the forest. Beyond a certain point, ruins and undead begin to roam, a wasteland known as the Graveyard of the Forgotten. Haruka stares out the window, her heart racing. She's terrified of embarrassing herself, or, worse, putting the kids in danger if she slows them down. Eventually, the exhaustion wins out, and she drifts off. Meanwhile, Albert is in the next room, snoring loud enough to shake the walls. The next morning, the whole party gathers, fully geared up and ready to go. Even a quiet Montana looks focused. Albert leads the charge with a huge grin, shouting that it's finally time to hunt some boars. Everyone is in high spirits. They march through the city streets toward the exit. Haruka takes the lead, looking confident as they head toward their destination. The group suddenly freezes. Corinne points out that they're at the west gate, but the Sunset Forest is actually through the east gate. Haruka's sense of direction is officially a disaster. Albert's clearly feeling a little embarrassed. He's grumbling about why she didn't mention being rank 5 before they set off. Haruka apologizes, admitting she didn't realize they were actually going on a hunt. Corinne just sighs, completely over Albert's pouting. Haruka takes a deep breath. Having two people with zero sense of direction in one party is going to be a real challenge. Despite the rocky start, they finally make it onto the forest path. It's peaceful for now, but everyone is on high alert. They come across an absolutely massive tree. In a world of magic, even the plants grow to ridiculous sizes. A killer rabbit pops out of the brush. Montana notes that while they're delicious, their blade-like ears mean they're not as cuddly as they look. Corinne keeps a close eye on Albert, reminding him not to go wandering off by himself. Naturally, he's already getting impatient. Suddenly, Montana's ears twitch. She catches a rhythmic thudding sound in the distance. Something heavy is headed their way. Albert comes sprinting back from the bushes, his face pale with terror. He's screaming at the top of his lungs for everyone to run. He doesn't wait for an explanation, grabbing Corinne and hauling her away. Haruka and Montana are left standing there, wondering what the big deal is. The ground begins to shake with every thundering step. Even Haruka can feel the vibrations through her boots now. A horned boar bursts through the trees, and it's a total beast. This thing isn't just a monster, it's a living tank. The boar doesn't hesitate, immediately locking onto the party and charging. It's moving way faster than something that size should. Corinne is losing her mind, screaming at Albert to explain why the thing is chasing them. He's just as confused as she is. Albert panics, explaining that he just made eye contact with it in the bushes and it went berserk. Haruka realizes they're in over their heads and orders a retreat. Looking back, Haruka realizes this thing far exceeds the guild's description. It's not just a big boar, it's a force of nature. The party is in full-blown flight mode. Albert's whining that this isn't the heroic adventure he signed up for. The massive beast is right on their heels, its heavy breathing and stomping echoing through the forest. They're dashing through the undergrowth as fast as their legs can carry them. There's no time for a plan, only survival. Albert is frantic, asking for help, while Haruka tries to process just how abnormal this creature's size really is. In the books, a horned boar is barely bigger than a piglet. This thing is the size of a small truck. Haruka remembers a bit of trivia. Boars can't turn well. She shouts for the group to start running in a zigzag pattern. Montana takes the lead, her cat-like reflexes guiding them through the tight turns. Haruka keeps the pace, shouting out directions. Even with the zigzags, the boar is relentless. It's plowing through the trees like they're made of paper. Montana's eyes narrow as she spots a potential opening. She's already thinking 3 steps ahead. She points out a massive ancient tree up ahead. If they can lure the beast into it, the impact might be enough to stop it. Montana's voice is calm as she reassures them. There's no such thing as an invincible creature. They just need a better strategy. Albert and Corinne find their resolve, nodding in agreement. Haruka is impressed. For a rookie, Montana is incredibly reliable. They reach the tree, and Haruka decides to act as the bait. Albert shouts for her to move, but she knows she has to stay to make the plan work. She stands her ground as the boar charges. She's relying on her magic strength and body to survive any glancing blows. The plan works perfectly. The boar slams into the thick trunk, burying its massive horn deep into the wood. With the beast stuck, Haruka starts her incantation. She's not taking any chances with this thing getting loose. Albert and Montana move in for the kill, but the boar's hide is like armor. Their physical attacks are barely leaving a scratch. Albert's sword bounces off with a metallic ring. He grunts in frustration. The beast is just too tough for a standard blade. Haruka watches the struggle, realizing that brute force alone isn't going to finish this. The beast's natural defenses are just too high. She focuses her mana, calling forth the wind. Ethereal blades start to form around her hands as she prepares a high-level spell. She aims her magic with the precision of a veteran hunter. The spell needs to be sharp, fast, and hit exactly where it hurts. Corinne tries to help by aiming for the eyes, but her arrow misses the mark. Haruka lets fly her wind slash, cutting through the air. The attacks are starting to add up, but the boar is still fighting back with everything it's got. It's a battle of endurance now. An arrow finally connects near the eye, but the tree is starting to splinter under the beast's strength. Albert yells for everyone to back off. Haruka steps forward, her gaze cold and focused. She reminds herself that despite its size, it's still just a wild animal that needs to be put down. She unleashes her final move, Wind Cutter. She aims directly for the neck, intending to end the fight in a single, decisive stroke. The Wind Cutter slices through the air, striking the beast with a violent impact. Haruka's heart sinks for a moment. She realizes she didn't hit the vital spot she was aiming for. Albert can only watch in shock. Despite the miss, the force of the spell is overwhelming, causing a burst of light and power. The massive creature's momentum is finally halted. It stumbles, its strength completely drained. With a thunderous crash that shakes the very ground, the monster falls. The battle is over. The dust settles, revealing the defeated beast. The party is stunned by the clean, powerful cut that brought it down. A heavy silence follows the roar of combat. Everyone is just trying to catch their breath. Haruka stands still, her expression a mix of relief and lingering tension as she looks at the fallen giant. Albert is the first to snap out of it, cheering wildly for Haruka's incredible display of magic. Corinne is awestruck by the sheer power, while Montana notes that even without hitting the vitals, the damage was catastrophic. Albert's excitement is contagious. He's already thinking about the next 4 boars and a certain rank up ahead. Haruka feels a bit overwhelmed by the direct praise. Corinne and Montana, meanwhile, realize they have a logistical nightmare on their hands with such a huge kill. Just then, a voice calls out from the brush. Someone heard the commotion and came to investigate. It's Ralph, a seasoned adventurer and leader of his own party. Albert recognizes him instantly, relieved to see a friendly face. Ralph is flabbergasted to see a group of rookies standing over a monster of this size. Albert proudly tells him they took it down together. Ralph's eyes go wide as he takes a closer look. He realizes this isn't a normal horn boar. It's a legendary tyrant boar. The rookies are stunned. They had no idea they were tackling something so far beyond their expected difficulty level. Ralph explains that a tyrant boar is an evolved species and an emergency subjugation request had been issued for it just that morning. He admits his own team was out hunting it, but they were beaten to the punch. Albert's mind immediately jumps to the rewards. Ralph gives him a knowing smile. A feat like this is more than enough to justify a massive jump in rank. The news hits them like a ton of bricks. Reaching rank 5 so early in their careers is like a dream come true. Albert is so ecstatic he scoops Montana up in a huge, bear hug, spinning her around in joy. The girls share a hug, their faces glowing with a mix of exhaustion and absolute triumph. Haruka watches them, her usual anxiety replaced by a quiet sense of satisfaction. Ralph watches the scene with a respectful nod. Albert is practically sparkling with gratitude, his eyes full of admiration for Haruka's strength. Haruka can't help but treat him like a younger brother, giving him a gentle, comforting pat on the head. Not to be outdone, Corinne leans in, clearly wanting a little bit of that praise and affection too. Haruka happily obliges, patting Montana's head next. The group's bond has clearly deepened after the life-or-death struggle. Ralph breaks up the moment with a laugh, reminding them that the guild still needs to hear the news. He offers to stay and guard the carcass while they run back to report. Haruka promises they'll be as fast as they can. On the way back, the conversation is all about the feast they're going to have. They've finally proven themselves as real adventurers. Haruka walks with a lighter step, realizing that she might just find a place for herself in this strange new world after all. The party successfully ranks up, with Haruka reaching rank 4 and the girls hitting rank 5. Only poor Albert is left at rank 6 due to his lack of achievements, leaving him in tears of frustration.